Welcome everyone to the Road to One. Today we have a special guest, my friend Rex Shippy. How's it going, man?
Good. How about yourself? I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been doing well, keeping busy. Excited to have you share your story.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your avatar, or what are your avatars, and where do you come from?
Yeah. So I am in Idaho, born and raised here, lived here my whole life. So currently I'm a buyer. And then we also own a corporate housing company as well. So that's what we do. And we only do it in Idaho. We only buy in Idaho and we only run our corporate housing company in Idaho. So very niche down.
Mhm.
Most people, it's different. Most people don't niche themselves down that much.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's it's been a journey to get to where I am. And I'll just go back and kind of start where I started from.
yeah,
A
sure.
little bit about my background because the last 2 years of my life look totally different from where I started to where I am. So born and raised, big family. Um, Grew up on a small farm, just a little small farm. My dad was self-employed. My older brothers, I have 11 siblings. So big family, a lot of older brothers. They all started their own businesses, self-employed, started lawn care businesses. But when I got to 18 years old, I that's all I knew. I started my own business as well. And so just started it and started growing my lawn care business. And then I sold that, went into landscaping, sold that, went into tree service. So I just in the small businesses. I owned my own job. I was self-employed, but if I wasn't on the job every day, I wasn't making any money. But got married, so I got an amazing wife, two kids, and we started doing like training border collies on the side and competing with them. So we started traveling all around the United States, competing with moving cows and sheep and amazing. It's so much fun. And then we became successful at it, but it was just it's hard to make a living doing that. I was doing
Mhm.
that on the side when I was trimming trees and all my other stuff. But if I wasn't out trimming trees, I didn't have any money coming in from the trees. So so it was that balance of I had to go make enough money to trim the tree and trim trees, then I could take that money and go utilize it in my dog business. So just everything. It was it was busy. We would travel all night to a competition and be there for a couple days, travel all night back, and then I'd go back to work and cutting trees. But that was we enjoyed doing that, and we had a vision for that.
Mhm.
But the problem was it's a vision to be down the road 10 years or 15 years because it's hard to make a living raising and training dogs. And we realized that. But in in my is doing my tree business, it was one of those things where you just every day get up, go climb another tree, go climb another tree. And I enjoyed it to a point, but I'm like, where is this going to get me in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Where is this going to get me? Am I going to still be climbing trees? And that realization. But I had some friends that were talking about investing and this book that they read that was so good. And I didn't come from a background of investing or anything.
Mhm.
So not even really reading a lot of books. Personal development was not a thing that I'd ever heard. It was not a word that was even something I ever heard
Right.
growing up. So it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, they're saying I should read this book. Like, okay, why? Why read a book? What's that gonna do me?
Yeah.
Because I was not a book reader.
Right.
And finally, I'm out trimming a tree one day and I'm like, they keep telling me I should read this book. I wonder if I can find it free on YouTube because I'm not gonna buy a book. Like
Yeah.
$10 for a book, that's stupid. It's not gonna
Ridiculous.
give me anything. So I looked it up on YouTube and sure enough, I found a version of it on YouTube. So I'm like, all right, I'll listen to it. And it's a pain. You're you got your phone on YouTube and
Mhm.
you're up trimming a tree and you put it in your pocket and then it'll shut the book off and you got to return. So that's the mindset that I was at, that I wouldn't pay $10 for a book
Yeah.
to read a book. I was like, I'm going to do the free version. And
Yeah.
this is when I got time, is when I'm climbing a tree.
Yeah.
I'll just take the time and pull my phone out of my pocket, turn it back on, put it back in there, hope it don't shut off. So, but I read that book, and that book just like totally changed everything for
What
me.
book was it?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, okay.
So it was one of those books where just it made me realize that struggling with money is a choice.
Mhm.
It's not a have to. Your background doesn't have to play into it, you know? It's a
Yeah.
choice. And I went home and I told Katrina, I said, wow, I read this book today. It was so good. And like he talked about like how you could take your money and you could make your money work for you. You could
Mhm.
invest it somewhere, and how you could get debt and you could acquire debt and you could make that debt actually make you money.
Mhm.
Because in my growing up, we never had debt. That was just not something you did. You didn't go
Right.
to the bank and get a loan.
Mhm.
My wife grew up the same way. No debt, no debt. And I'm like, so I could actually get debt and I could make it make me money, instead of like, it just like blew my mind. Because to me, I thought debt was just bad. All
Right.
debt was bad.
Mhm.
And it made me realize the difference between a good debt and bad debt.
Mhm.
And so that was a huge turning point in my life, to realize that there is something more, that there is something more that I could do. And it took me a couple of years to get actually in started in real estate, but that was a start. And I didn't know where to go from there. I didn't know what to do from there. It was just like, but I'm like, okay, I have realized that there is another way. So it was just slowly working through that
Mhm.
and figuring out, what are the next steps? What does that need to look like? And for me, I started looking at the stock market and day trading, and like, where can I invest my money? Because
Mhm.
I can't go buy real estate because real estate's expensive. I don't got that kind of money laying around, you know.
Mhm.
I was living paycheck to paycheck. Like, I don't got that kind of money. And I sure enough can't go to the bank and get a loan for it because I don't got any credit.
Right.
And so it's one of those predicaments, just trying to figure out what I could do that I could still be investing in my future and making my money work for me, but I could actually, that was actually achievable at that time.
Mhm.
But as I was working, I would realize these houses around town that needed fixed up, or I would go trim a tree or cut down a tree for a real estate investor, for a rental property of theirs,
Mhm.
you know? And I
Yeah.
just started realizing, I'm like, okay, here's these people out here. They own all these rental properties. I'm trimming their trees. Like, what if I owned a rental property? Like, that would just be that would be status.
Yeah.
Like I own a rental property. Like that would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it would be so much fun to own a rental property. I could be like, I own that place in town. Like, because I've never owned a place in town at that time. I've never lived
Mhm.
in town. I was always out in the country, but I'm like, I own that place in town. I just thought that'd be pretty cool. But
Mhm.
then it'd be a place that I could slowly put my money into and fix up or whatever.
Yeah.
And I listened to a lot of podcasts, a lot of bigger pocket stuff that told me, you got to get a bank loan, you got to save up, you got to go save up 25% or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and go get a bank loan, and then live in the house, refinance in a year, go buy another one, live in the house, refinance, go buy another one.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't want to live in town. I don't want to move every year.
Yeah.
I can't even go get a bank loan. But I didn't realize there was any other way. So for a year, I listened to a lot of Bigger Pockets podcasts because I would hear other people's stories, and once in a while I'd hear a story about like someone doing owner financing on a property. And I'm like, that's really cool, but that's a once in a lifetime thing. That's never going to happen. Even though I bought my own personal property on owner finance. I bought vehicles on owner finance. I bought equipment on owner finance. I bought 150 head of sheep on owner finance. I bought all kinds of stuff on owner finance
Right.
prior, but I never made the connection. I'm like, no one will ever sell me an investment property on owner finance. Like, why would they do that? But I just never made that connection. Even though I was no stranger to owner finance, but I just never made that connection.
Is it just normal in that in the farming industry just to do owner finance?
Not necessarily. No, if you're buying land,
Yeah.
land is a lot more chance of people doing owner finance on land,
Hmm.
because it's harder for people to get loans, bank loan on land. And that's all we had. So our personal property was just land. It was 45 acres of land,
Hmm.
and we lived in a fifth wall RV on the property. So it
Wow.
was it was just land.
Wow. So let's go back to the 150 head of sheep. How does that something how does something like that get collateralized when you're when you're buying sheep?
It wasn't collateralized. It was just like, hey, give me payments over time.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. So it wasn't collateralized, but it was just like, hey, I'll give you this much down. I'll make payments to you over the next 3 months or 6 months, or I don't remember what the terms were now,
Hmm.
but just I'll just make payments to you over time.
And then so what would happen if you didn't make the payments? He'd come by and pick them up?
He could have came by and picked him up and hauled him to the sell barn or something. So it was it was just, yeah, it wasn't like a paperwork structure and everything else. It was
Interesting.
just make payments to me over time, get them paid off. The guy just wanted them gone, and I'm like,
Mm.
hey, I want them because there was a bunch of like lambs, and then there was the ewes, and so it was just, I'm like, I want them, but I can't pay you the money right now. I'll just
Yeah.
pay you this much and down, and I'll make the rest of the payments over time.
So he was motivated seller.
Yeah, and that's really what it is, a motivated seller. It was the easy out for him. He
Yeah.
didn't need the money right now,
Mhm.
and he didn't want to have to go get a big trailer, load them up, and haul them all the way to the sell barn, and then maybe get a good price out of them, or maybe not get a good price out of them because the sell barn prices, they fluctuate all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So, the cool thing was, so I bought the sheep. It was I think 150 head. There was a bunch of lambs. So a bunch of them was that the one year they were having lambs.
Mhm.
And later that year, I took the stuff that was born that year.
Mhm.
I hauled them to the sell barn, and I paid for the whole flock of sheep. So I was then out of pocket, no money, and I owned all these sheep.
That is so cool. I just never thought about buying animals and then buying animals on owner finance and then splitting up the herd and paying for the entire lot with just a portion of it, just like you would in your portfolio.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, because they were pregnant with lambs. They had the lambs 8 months later, or whatever it was. I
Mhm.
then sold all the lambs off, which then paid for the whole herd of sheep. And then
Okay.
I had owned all these sheep, zero money out of pocket in a sense.
Yeah.
They paid for themselves.
Have you done a video on this talking about the story?
No.
You should though. You
I
should.
should, but I just
Yeah.
haven't. Yeah. And it's it is kind of one of those things where when I started thinking about investing,
Mhm.
I started thinking about investing, little things would come up, and I'd be like, oh, I've already did that, but I didn't realize that's what it was.
Yeah.
Like where we raised and trained dogs, there was a family I knew we were good friends with. They wanted one of our really good bred pups. And we're like, yeah, we'll sell it to you. But they're like, hey, we have 7 puppies that aren't bred as good. Do you guys want to trade those? And I'm like, sure. They didn't want to worry about selling them. They just wanted one really nice dog. So we
Hmm.
got them. We found them some amazing homes, and we made more money off those seven than we made off the one. Than we would have made off the one. I think we was going to sell the one for $1,500 or something.
Hmm.
Well, we sold the seven for two or three thousand dollars. All
Yeah.
seven were nice dogs, but they just
Hmm.
didn't have the bloodlines that ours did.
Right.
And then a year later, that family said, "Hey, we got to move." They was living on a ranch and they got kicked off the ranch. They had to move pretty quick, and
Hmm.
they said, we got to sell a bunch of stuff, and this dog is one of the dogs we're going to sell. It's a really nice dog, but we just don't have the room for it where we're going."
Yeah.
And they reached out to us and said, "Hey, do you guys want to buy the dog?" And I said, "Yeah, we'll buy the dog." But they said, "We want $2,000 for the dog." I'm like, "I'll give you 2,000. It's an amazing dog."
Hmm.
And but I said, "I can't pay you for probably at least 30 days." They're like, "That doesn't matter. We just we're moving. We need the dog gone. Send me the check in 30 days when you can." I said, "Okay, sounds good." So I got the dog, and it was something we was going to keep long term. We
Hmm.
were planning to keep it long term, and because it was just one of those really amazing dogs. But then we had in the when we kind of became successful in the competition world, people started reaching out to us. People wanted our dogs. People wanted dogs that we had,
Hmm.
and which you see that in real estate too. But we had people reaching out to us, and one person's like, "Hey, I want this kind of a dog, this." And I said, "Well, I really don't have any like that for sale. I have one that I was going to keep, but I wasn't planning to sell it."
Hmm.
And they're like, "Well, what would you sell it for?" I said, $3,500 and I'll sell it." And I said, "Sound good. Sounds good." So they mailed me a $3,500 check for a dog that I hadn't even paid for.
Yeah.
I bought the dog for 2,000. I hadn't even paid it yet. So they mailed me the $3,500 check. I took $2,000 of that and mailed it to the people that I bought it from, and I made $1,500 in like a 3 week span. That it didn't cost me. I didn't put out any money, and I'm like, wow, that was that was pretty cool. The dog was totally worth the 3,500 because
Right.
they went on to do amazing things, awesome things with that dog.
Hmm.
But it was just that connection of I just barely made money in thin air.
Right.
There was literally just thin air that I just printed money out of and made it happen.
So just listening to all these stories, I know it's about animals, but it's like you were building all these skills and experience specifically for creative finance, and the only thing that really changed were the widgets, which are the houses instead of animals.
Yeah. And that's so it was and when I started realizing this stuff was after when I started thinking about investing
Hmm.
and how can I invest my money here? How can I invest my money here? And then I would do something little like with a dog and I'm like that I just want to do that on a bigger scale with real estate.
Hmm.
But how can I make that happen?
Yeah.
So I was noticing these little things I was doing, but I didn't have the right widget, I guess. I didn't have the real estate. I couldn't do it with real estate at the time.
Yeah. So what did it take for you to transfer this knowledge into real estate?
So one of my brothers said, "Hey, there's this guy on YouTube that's doing some really cool stuff. I think you should listen to his videos." And I'm like, "Okay, send it to me." So he sent me the video, and it was a 16-hour live video of Pace Morby. And that is the video. I sit down and just watch that whole video through.
Hmm.
And I told my wife, I said, "This is the way we're going to make real estate happen. This is the way we will build financial freedom." This is this is it was just like all of those walls that had built up that
Hmm.
I needed a bank, that I needed money, that I needed credit, that I needed all that stuff. I was I and prior I got a credit card and I'm trying to build my credit up. I tried to get some car loans and they wouldn't let me get a car loan for $12,000 or whatever I was wanting to buy the car for.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't give me any of that stuff, but I had a credit card and I was building up my credit
Mm.
and trying to climb over this big, huge, tall wall. And I'm sitting there putting all these little things in place, trying to get up over it. And that one YouTube video just shattered that wall. And I just seen the future. I'm like, that wall is down. Now I just have open space. I can
Mm.
go anywhere now.
Yeah.
It was just that video is what bridged that gap between in my mind. That's the one that knocked the walls down, all the mindset barriers that I had.
Yeah. All right. So what kind of mindset barriers did you have?
I
Did you
thought I
not
had
know?
to, I thought I had to get a bank loan.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize I could do creative financing. So I had a 10-year goal to buy 10 doors. And I'm like, if I save up 25%, by that, it's going to be 2 years before I can get a bank loan for a house, probably. So I'll save
Mm.
up 25%. Once I get the bank loan, I'll buy the house, I'll fix it up or whatever I need to do with it. And
Yeah.
then maybe a couple of years later, I'll buy another one. And then I figured, the last 5 years, I would buy 1 to 2 a year. And I'm like, 10 years, I can get 10 properties. And
Yeah.
that will be the end all be all, like to
Right.
own ten doors.
Yeah. And how many do you have
And
now?
I have over 10 doors now.
Yeah, you crushed it.
So, so really that was December of 22, when I watched that YouTube video. A month later, I decided I have to be in the community. So I joined Sub 2.
Mm.
I never paid for a program before. I'm like, well, if I get scammed, I get scammed. I'm going to learn something one way or another here.
Yeah.
But it was just I joined it and then I did but like right when I heard that video, I started just doing everything. I was making calls. I was calling anybody and everybody that had a house for sale. I
Mm.
actually had multiple deals like close to signing contract on
Yeah.
before I ever joined Sub 2. They didn't go through. And then I joined Sub 2. And then I continued to do just everything. I was talking to anybody I knew that was doing anything with real estate, whether they was an agent, whether they was an investor. I didn't know any investors, so I was trying
Mm.
to get to know investors.
Yeah.
I posted on my Facebook, like I could pull up the original post that said, "Hey guys, it showed a picture of me looking out over a town up on a hill, and I said, I'm starting to buy real estate now, and this is what I'm looking for, X, Y, and all these different things." I felt stupid posting it. Like that's the dumbest thing ever. Like, why? Like, I am not I'm saying I'm a real estate investor, but everybody knows I climb trees. I'm a dog trainer. I climb trees. It's like,
Yeah.
and I'm saying, hey, I'm going to go start buying real estate. But it was because of that, I had leads that came in off of that that I was about to make a deal happen on a property. And then and I was talking to someone else I knew who's an agent and a broker. And we were sitting there talking back and forth, trying to make this happen. He knew a little bit about creative finance, and I wasn't in Sub 2 yet. So I was trying to put this deal together, and it fell through. But then I joined Sub 2, went for a month or so, and then my work started getting busy, and I started getting a little bit discouraged
Mm.
because I'm like, I've been in here for a bit. I don't got a deal yet. And like I thought I was gonna get one in the first month, but I just don't got one yet. And so I put real estate on the back burner for the next 3 or 4 months. And just as I was working, I would continually listen to mindset stuff.
Mm. Like what kind
And
of mindset stuff? What'd you listen to?
so I would listen to some books, podcasts on YouTube, like the Daily Dials in Sub 2. Some of those were talking about mindset.
Mm.
I didn't really have any direction that I was going. I would
Yeah.
just like, I'll keep listening to stuff. It motivates me sometimes, and
Mm.
this is some good stuff.
Yeah.
So it was nothing in particular. It was just random stuff. I didn't have a direction,
Mm.
but I just continue listen to that, continue listen to that. And then Well, guess what? All the talking I did 4 or 5 months prior finally came back to me one morning, and I'm driving to actually my grandma's funeral, and it's an hour and a half away from my place. I'm driving there, and someone calls me up and says, "Hey Rex, I I was looking at buying this house from a wholesaler, and I I'm not going to buy it because I have too much going on. Is this something you want?" And I'm like, yeah. It's he's like, there's $5,000 to the wholesaler, $9,000 to the seller, owner finance 30 years for 3.9%. It does need work. It's a little two-bedroom house in a smaller town, and it does need work. He's like, I think it could be a great starter home. And I'm like, absolutely. So later that day, went down and looked at the property, and I didn't have the $5,000 in my bank account to pay the wholesaler $5,000 by 3 p.m. that day.
Hmm.
And I didn't have time to drive back home to get some extra cash I had there and go put it in the bank to wire money to the wholesaler.
Yeah.
So I called up one of my brothers. I said, "Hey, do you want to partner on this deal?" He's the one that sent me the YouTube video. He's the one that convinced me to read the Rich Dad Poor Dad book. And I'm like, we'll just do 50-50. You bring 50% of the money, I'll bring 50% of the money, and we'll make this happen. So that's what we did. And that's where I got my first deal, first investment property.
Yeah.
It was literally just by doing a bunch of stuff,
Hmm.
taking a bunch of action. And the guy told me, he said, I know this is like what you're at. He knew what I was looking for. He knew what I was doing. That's why he thought of me when he decided not to buy it, because I told everybody what I was doing. I told everybody, did I look like an idiot some of the time? Yeah, I did, saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm buying real estate." But it's
Yeah.
just part of it. Like, you got to start somewhere. If people don't know what you're doing and what you're looking for,
Hmm.
they're not going to bring it to you. They have to know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think some of the things that I want to highlight are the fact that you even posted that this is what you're looking for and the feeling that came with posting, right? I mean, even now when I record the videos, I feel like an idiot, but you just do it because it's what generates leads, it generates opportunities for you. And the fact that you had a clear buy box, right? You had was it a clear buy box?
No, it's everything.
Oh, is
When I
everything?
first made that post, single family RV parks, mobile home parks,
Hmm.
small multifamily, literally, but people knew that I was looking to buy real estate.
Right.
I didn't have a clear buy box when I first posted,
Yeah.
but people did know I was looking to buy real estate. But this particular guy, I was trying to buy a couple different single family homes, and I was asking
Uh,
him questions and stuff about it
mhm.
because, in a sense, he did know what I was looking for because I wanted to buy and hold stuff. I wanted to hold
Right.
long term.
Mhm.
And so he did know what I was looking for. But that original post, I was looking for everything.
Yeah. But people can't help you if they don't know that you're looking for something. And even if it's just a general blast, I'm looking for anything, from single family homes to RV parks. People can't help you if they don't know that that's what you're looking for.
And no one would have ever known that I was trying to buy real estate if I didn't make the post on it. Like, I
Mhm.
had people that I did dog competitions with, and they'd come up to me at one of the next trials, one of our next competitions after I made
Mhm.
that post, and they're like, "Hey, awesome post, by the way. Like, that congratulations on the new journey or the new adventure."
Mhm.
I wasn't doing anything at the time really, but people seen it and they're like, "Oh, he's trying to buy real estate now."
Yeah.
And it's surprising how many people actually are like, that's really cool. They have that own dream of buying real estate.
Mhm.
They have their own dream, but they just haven't took the step out and said it yet to the world.
Yeah, they just, and one another thing is they just don't know how to get started.
Yep. They
Um,
don't know where to start. Like I didn't for years. There
mhm,
was probably a 2 year period there that I didn't know where to start. I didn't make a post on social media. I
mhm.
was trying to buy real estate, but I didn't talk about it. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know anything.
Yeah, I think something that was something you did that I did as well is I didn't have a direction. I knew that I had some kind of goal. So you just listen to everything, anything and everything that's related to that subject, just so you can get a better idea or just learn something, right? Moving forward, just one step at a time. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, it's and it does. I say work on trying to get that goal narrowed down,
Mhm.
trying to get your direction narrowed down. But it takes some time.
Yeah.
You know, you may have to do everything for a little while, but at some point you do have to start saying no to opportunity.
Yeah.
I started calling in the Midwest, making calls in the Midwest because that's where I was going to buy properties
Mhm.
because they're cheaper. You can get into them with less money just because you can buy a new house for $250,000 instead of $350,000, you know, so
Yeah.
things like that. But I just realized I don't want to buy in the Midwest. I don't know the Midwest. I know Idaho. I
Mhm.
know the market here. It's harder here, but I know it here.
Yeah.
So I just literally said no to everything. Everything outside of Idaho, no, 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 no. This is the only state I'm going to buy in. And then I said no to multifamily. I said no to even duplexes, triplexes. I wouldn't even look at them. I wouldn't even
Yeah.
call about them. It was only single family homes, low equity, single family. Once I real, and that was a while after I got my first deal, you know, and it took
Mhm.
me a while to get there. So it was probably 8 months before I got that narrowed down. But when I did, that's when things really started to go from there.
Yeah, it's weird because when you first get started and you're newer, you're always thinking, "Oh, if I cast a wider net, I'm more likely to get a deal." But it's actually the opposite because then you said start spinning your wheels on deals that you're not even that interested in. And by niching down to, in your case, just single family homes, not even duplexes, right? It makes it much easier to just say no to things that are just going to distract you and dig into the ones that are actual possibilities that you would pick up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually just had two of these conversations in the last 2 days that people are asking me, said, should I do, I kind of want to do lending, but I also want to do like wholesaling or buy and hold stuff.
Yeah.
And like, I really want to do both of these. And my, what I told them is don't. You're going to see if you want to do lending, do lending. If you want to
Mhm.
do wholesaling,
Yeah.
but don't do both. The people that are really, really successful, they're focused on one thing to start with.
Right.
Once they get that one thing up to a certain point, then they can branch out and go to something else. But until then, you just like you said, you spinning your wheels on deals that you're not even interested in, but you think that you might be able to make them work just to because you want a deal or
Right.
you want to make something work.
Hmm.
And that's a hard thing to get past is just saying no to opportunity because I'm like in our minds, our thoughts are like, but that could have been a deal.
Yeah.
But that could have been a deal.
Yeah.
I'm like, that could have been a deal, but not for me,
Right.
for someone else.
Hmm. Yeah,
You
that's mhm.
go ahead.
I was gonna say like that's a really powerful thing and people don't understand.
It is. And that is one of the things that holds so many people back.
Hmm. Yeah.
Just they hold so many people back from getting their first deal, from getting their second, third, fourth deal. That hold so many people back because they don't know what they're looking for.
Right.
They're trying to make something work. And I understand that because you have to go through a period of time sometimes just to realize, just to figure out what you want to do. But as soon as you can, narrow that down. It's so hard to say no to stuff. So hard to, especially if you see something that might come up.
Right.
Even now, I see deals that'll come up in Arizona
Hmm.
or wherever, and I'm like, that's a good deal in Utah, the very next state over,
Yeah.
2 hours from the border of Idaho, and I'm like, that's an awesome property. Like that's a good deal.
Hmm.
Should I go buy that? Nope. I should not go buy that. That's just not. It's literally 2 hours, 2 hours from where I would buy.
Yeah.
But I'm like, no, I won't do that. And
Yeah.
and it's and I've seen it really impact my business in a lot more ways than just one. When I'm very niche down,
Hmm.
I know exactly what I'm buying and I know exactly where I'm buying it. For me, raising money for those deals isn't hard because I'm only buying this and I know why I'm buying it. I know what it will do. I know I know everything around that. So for when a lender comes in and wants to lend on a deal, I'm not like, yeah, these are just what the comps say over here, it comps out at this, or this is kind of what I'm finding for rental comps in this area, so I think it would be a good deal for me. And part of it, I built a business to a point, but I'm like, this house will rent for this much. I have one 2 miles away that's renting at this much for the last 6 months. This one will rent for this much.
Hmm.
So being niched is so much more powerful than most people give it credit for, especially being newer in business like I am,
Yeah.
doing it for a year and a half or something. If you've been doing it for 3, 4 years and you have the team and you have the company around you to do it nationwide, that's awesome. I know
Right.
people that are doing amazing that way.
Hmm.
But for me, being very niche right now is a superpower.
Yeah. I mean, especially if anything pops up that meets your criteria, you're the first person they're going to think of.
Yeah, they know Rex is a buyer for Idaho. Rex
Yeah.
is a buyer for Idaho. And there's other buyers here too that buy stuff as well.
Hmm.
But Rex is the buyer for Idaho. And then I'm raising money for a deal, and I'm like, well, this is what the property will do. I only buy here, And so
Hmm.
I know my mark. I've learned my market so well here that I know exactly what stuff will or won't do.
Yeah. Very cool. So, how did you learn how to underwrite these opportunities? How did you figure out what a deal
That's
was?
that's a really good question. Um, I I used to I have hosted an underwriting Zoom for a little while,
Hmm.
but I've always just done pen and paper.
Yeah.
I'm old school, like napkin underwriting. The easier way to do that is just knowing my own market, buying in
Hmm.
my own market.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, even on my first few deals, my first one, owner finance, I think my PITA on that one's like $840 a month. I'll cash flow great on. I'm like, I can definitely rent this house out for
Hmm.
way more than that.
Yeah.
And there was some of it when I was starting out was just kind of like, I think this would work. I'm gonna go for it. And then make mistakes and I'm like, okay, I need to pivot a little bit and
Hmm.
do this with the property or do
Right.
this with the property. But as far as learning to underwrite, I always tell people if you can run a calculator, you can underwrite.
Yeah.
Like that's really all it is. Sometimes you need to have a checklist of what are my expenses in the property?
Hmm.
What's my entry fee? What are my monthly expenses going to be? And then if it's not in an area, maybe you live in the area, but you're new and you don't know what it would rent for, call 3 property managers in the area. Say, hey, I'm looking at buying this house over on 123 Main Street. This is what the house is. What would this rent for as a 12-month rental? All 3 of them are going to give you a price.
Yeah.
You can kind of go in the middle and you can figure you're going to get it rented for right in the middle somewhere. And so then you know what your monthly rent would be as a long-term rental. Now you can go take all your other numbers, write them down on a piece of paper, get a calculator, add them up, and see if it makes sense.
I just love it using pen and paper.
That's yeah. I always have a notebook by me all the time,
Yeah.
and I scribble notes all day long. And pen and I have never used an actual underwriting calculator for my own deals. I'll use them to show other people how to use them or underwrite with them.
Mhm.
But with a pen and paper, I could just write all my numbers down. I can go through with my calculator on my phone, add them up, and know where the numbers need to be.
Yeah. I love that, man.
It's these calculators are free. I'm not a technology smart person. Like 1 year ago is when I even started to use a laptop. I never used a computer before that. So everything I've just had to kind of self-learn how to use technology and because I didn't grow up with it.
Right.
So pen and paper, I grew up with pen and paper. I ran multiple businesses with pen and paper. So it's what I know. So for underwriting, people overcomplicate it. I think a
Yeah.
lot.
hmm
They think it's a lot more complicated than it is,
Yeah.
but it's just adding numbers. And I understand some people don't realize as a new person, you don't know what you need to find out.
hmm
You need to find out what the utilities are going to be, what the closing costs are going to be, what the all of those numbers. And I understand that sometimes you just have to have a checklist or go through it and do it and then make a mistake and be like, oh, wait, I should have added that in there. I should have
Yeah.
added that in there. But it's just part of learning it.
Comes with practice too. Just
It- it-
practice.
oh yeah, lots of practice and making mistakes.
Yeah.
Make a mistake and then you'll realize, well, I guess I shouldn't have did that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times your mistakes aren't going to be deadly.
hmm
They're not gonna, you're not going to lose tons of money, but I've made mistakes
Yeah. Me
where I
too.
lost tons of money on different deals.
Yeah.
And it was a learning thing. Won't make the mistake again. But don't be
Yeah.
afraid of making a mistake.
Yeah. Mistakes are important. They help us learn.
Yes.
Well, I have taken up way too much of your time. Thank you. I just I enjoy hearing about your life before real estate. It's just so interesting to me because I grew up in the suburbs,
Mhm.
and everyone that I grew up with, we kind of have similar paths and that went to school, went to college, went to go out and get, stable W-2s. And then so to hear your story is just like it's just so interesting to me. Um, but how can people work with you and how can people reach out to you?
Yeah. So to reach out to me, they can reach out to me on Instagram or Facebook. That's either one of those.
Mhm.
Um, I buy deals in Idaho. So I have people that want to lend on deals. If someone's got money and wants to lend on a deal, reach out to me. I only do deals in Idaho. So if you want to lend on a deal in another state, I'm probably not the best fit for you. Um, but yeah, if people come across deals in Idaho that they want to do deals with me, partner with me on deals,
Mhm.
um, wholesale a deal to me, I'm a buyer for Idaho and the whole state of Idaho.
Cool. All right, so we'll have your Facebook and your Instagram. Do you have YouTube yet?
I do have YouTube. So yeah, YouTube, you can reach out to me there too.
All right, I'll make sure to get those three links in the description. And thank you again for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on here.